All right. Well, thank you everyone
Yes,
for
yes,
joining this first talk strategy call. Now, Chris and I decided to do some work together, and I'll get to that in a second. But talk strategy is going to be our attempt to try and connect strategy to how people deliver software. Now, why do we think that's important? I'll get to that later on. But this is going to be a very open forum. So if you have questions, shoot them at us throughout the call. If you want us to slow down or stop, just intervene, and we'll see how we go. So this week's talk strategy is going to be on OKRs and leading indicators. And when I do training, it's people get to sort of a high level lagging indicator very quickly. Think throughput, what's delivered before we know throughput. Or think that the customer's sales grow 50%. That's great, but what did we do and how did we know we're on track to get the customers to grow 50%? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So Chris and myself have a sordid history. We met back in the old Linkit days. Anyone remember Linkit? Still thumbs up if you did. If you were early Linkit users, a Kanban tool. And what we started working on there was I showed Chris some forecasting technology that I had and thought that it would be cool to integrate it to Linkit. We never really truly got it integrated very well. We did some other work on visualizations, and then Chris, well, what did you do, Chris? What happened to Linkit?
Linkit sold to PlanView in 2017 and is now called PlanView Agile Place, but it still looks a lot like Linkit, and there's still a lot of Linkitters down there in Austin working on it. So
nice. So it's the Agile Place now. Great. So yeah, so we did that, and then but we still felt a bit sort of unfinished business, because one of the things we were looking at when we were at Linkit there was sort of making analytics more just there, like looking at, like, rather than having to go to a report and then understand and interpret a report, how do we make it just on the Kanban boards? Maybe we change the background color of the columns based on throughput, or maybe we highlight sort of where work is sitting idle by just using colors or alerts and stuff like that. So rather than having to go and find out what's wrong with your flow, maybe you should just be able to see it. And we recently sort of took a lot of our ideas about, you've all seen sort of some of the spreadsheets that I have and the technologies and the tools that I have and that teach. Well, we've sort of rolling them into a new product, which is unreleased to the general market at the moment, but it's actually available and probably soft launched as of this call, that you can go and give it a try at heycasey.io if you go there. So this is our new sort of realm. But now's the job. What we're trying to do is to try and convince everyone about what we're doing. So we've both been in the software industry for multiple decades, and we rounded down because it just, at this time of life, you round down how long you've been in industries. And I guess, you know, very realistically, on the nerdiness scale, there's a big difference between us. So we might have the same number of years in the software, but he's terrible and shocking at spreadsheets, to be honest. I don't like to say that, but yeah, he's just not very good at spreadsheets. Anyway, that's us. So today's topic, why you joined, was turning strategy and OKRs into leading indicators. So I'm only going to really do a couple of introduction slides to make sure we get the terminology correct and we understand what we're talking about. And then we're going to go over, and I'm going to take your strategies and your real examples and start sort of working those through. Now, this is always a very interactive part of the training course, and eventually the penny drops. Our industry-wise in certifications and so forth, we don't really teach what metrics to capture and why. We just tell you and show you how to use charts and so forth. So I don't like that. I think that we do need to understand how to get to sort of indicators which allow us to take action rather than just sort of observing a disaster in the past and then saying, wow, that didn't go according to plan. So there we go. Any questions so far, format? Good. All right, so OKRs came about, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago. Jeff Godhealth and Josh Seaton, they pretty much documented it in the first book. But what they documented was how Google and a few other companies used OKRs to manage their engineering teams. And it's done quite well. It wasn't the first. There was sort of some goal question metrics. There was some other frameworks around that predated. But this one tended to grab the imagination of a lot of larger companies, I guess because there were some good case studies of how it worked quite well. Now, if you don't know OKRs, it's the objective and key results. There's actually 2 parts to objectives and key results. There's what you want to do and how you tell when you get there. And they've just released a new book, which tries to simplify it down because I think they were having trouble getting people to do OKRs in the way they intended. So they wrote a book called Who Does What by How Much. And what that is that is how you can think of OKRs. It requires who's going to change, what they're and how they're going to change, and by how much. So, for instance, what we're sort of saying is there's a customer who's going to feel the change, what behavior changes would indicate that they've felt the change, and how much that change occurs. Now, the only one I don't like here is the by how much. I think it's really a rate of change. Now, why do I say that? Because like you could get a big change in losing weight over 10 years if you try hard, or in my case, an increase in weight over 10 years. And that's not significantly a problem. But if it happens over 3 months, you've probably got a medical issue that's causing your weight gain or loss to occur. So I like to think of OKRs, especially the measurement side of OKRs, the key results side of it, is about how fast we want that behavior to change, not just that it changed and we're passive viewers of that. That makes sense. So keep this in mind. It's who does what by how much. That's what an OKR is all about. It's about setting an objective and measuring a behavioral change. So objectives would be good traits of objectives are they're goals. They inspire someone to sort of do something, and they share why. And the key results show progress, evidence that we're making progress or likely to make progress in the future, and they share how. And I think there's that combination of why and how in one sort of management tool that makes them probably better than their predecessors and probably rightly becoming popular. Now, here's an example. In 5 years, Uber will transform cities by making personal car ownership a thing of the past and creating more space for people to live, work, and play. Now, who's the who in this? Who is this targeting? Now, we mentioned Uber, but where's the behavioral change? The behavioral change is actually on the people who are going to not have personal cars anymore. So there's a bit of confusion between visions and OKRs and objectives. And I think visions, this is more of a vision statement because it is where Uber wants to be in 5 years' time. Now, what would be the OKR for this? What would we be looking at sort of measuring? So that's a North Star. In 5 years, Uber will transform cities. A big, hairy, audacious goal, we used to call it in the 90s because I think we just like the term bad. And then it's sort of an ambitious stuff. Now, when we get down to the other end of the spectrum there, in 3 months, Uber will have an Android application for ride hailing. Is that still an objective? One in the chat window said, it's an output. Yep. Thanks, Chris. I think so too. And it's a tactic. I would call it a tactic. It's a tactic for achieving your sort of vision, your North Star. And there's a big gap between these. The North Star and the tactics, there's a huge space. And I think what OKRs help us do is bridge the gap between the two, bridge the gap between the vision and the tactics we're going to do to make that vision become true. Okay, so OKRs are more if it feels like it's an output about what we're going to do, it's probably a tactic. If it feels like, a big change of how an ambitious sort of North Star for the company, it's probably a vision. And OKRs, though, are in that sweet spot in the middle. All right. So now leading indicators, key results. The key results part of OKRs. They're a customer behavioral change. We've already been through that. They're very strongly correlated to the objective. We blend them together. The objective and key result go as a pair. So we're saying that this objective is going to be successful when we have this key result measure. And the behavior, it's mostly observed after the objective is being met or has been met. It's sort of, we can't measure a behavioral change until the behavioral change has occurred. And what it helps us do is check whether we're investing enough or we can invest somewhere else in what we're planning to do at a portfolio level. So the key results in OKRs typically are lagging because their sole job is to detect a behavioral change, and you can't detect a behavioral change until it's changed, until behavior has happened. And that's great, except if we don't now have a tool to course correct our tactics as we're doing our work. And that's why I think in addition to OKRs, we need to have some leading indicators which help chart the course between point A and point B in a way that helps us manage. Because what leading indicators do is they detect a change in something, not just a behavior change, and we speculate that they're correlated to the objective. So as we get more leading, as the objective hasn't been met yet, we're placing a bet that, yeah, this is giving us confidence that we're heading in the right direction. And that's sort of where we get to see it earlier and make those course corrections. And they help us select the tactics we're going to do. So, like, do we do the Android app or do we do the iPhone app first? All right. Now, the key result of helping customers change their personal car ownership is too far ahead for us to understand whether right now is it worth doing the Android or the iPhone app. So the leading indicators, even if you use OKRs, you're going to want to have another set of measures which tell you and help you choose what tactics or work and actions you're going to do. So that's my business case for needing leading indicators. All right, now how do we do it? How do we get these leading indicators? Well, you start with the customer objective and the key result. You start with that. And then you start asking questions. For that to come true, what needs to happen? Because we're trying to find tactics that will cause that to happen. What would increase the odds of that coming true? Sometimes we're just trying to find and increase the confidence that if this is in place, people will more likely have car ownership. So for the Uber example, if there were very fast, easy, and cheap rides in my local area, I would probably use them. So it's a confidence thing. When it's not true, how do we know? So maybe we don't have an indicator to say we're on track, but we definitely have an indicator to say that that's not working, that that's not actually going to help us at all. So we've got to look for a lot of negative indicators or reverse indicators. For that to come true, what need to stop or change? Now, think about in the software world, what would we have to do to, random example here, to maybe sort of increase flow when we have a lot of approval gates? Or we might need to change how we do the approval gates. We might need to sort of say, If it passes integration testing, you get to move it into staging, not after it has had a full regression test by a test team or something like that. If we achieve that, where might we pay the price? Finding trade-offs. And anybody who's done any of my training knows that all I talk about the whole time with metrics and measures is trade-offs, that by doing something, you cause harm elsewhere. And sometimes when you do too much of something, you break elsewhere. And our job is to find those. So let's do one as an example. Like, let me show you how I would sort of go for a key result. So the classic sort of trade-offs I look at up in the top right-hand corner here is that we have this sort of six-way tug-of-war in sort of all metrics that have flow. So there's do the right stuff, there's do it right, there's do it fast, there's do it predictably and consistently, there's do lots of it, and there's keep doing it, being able to keep doing it. And the one I often do in the training is I start off with the quality one. So in the chat window there, what do you think are good measures of quality in a product development process? Next, and then I'll get to your question in a second. Low production incidents, yep, that's right. Anyone else got any? This is the hard one. So what I find when I run this in customer complaints, that's great. Time to recover. So notice that all of these examples that we've got in the chat window there, having trouble with that one, Dimitar, but yeah, you got it right there. They're lagging indicators. Time to recover needs production to fail. Customer complaints needs a customer to complain, right? Escape bugs, DORA report metrics, yep, good-o, we got that. Still, I think that most of those, even escape defects, even the DORA ones, the mean time to restore means that production has to be down to measure the mean time to restore. Mean time between failure means we need a failure to actually do it. Support tickets, failure demand. So notice that it's very common that the first things that come to mind, especially with quality, are sort of more lagging indicators. So often though, if you're running a process inside a company there, what you're trying to do is stop any of those bad things occurring. Stop them, stop the production downtime, stop the mean time between restore, and so forth. So what we're trying to do here is work backwards from that and give our teams and people some early warning indicators, something that they can actually see that if we change our process, we're going to have less or no production downtime because it's not occurring. So yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to have quite a lot here. I guess mean time to restore, faster rollbacks. It's certainly an improvement to just sort of having the downtime. But can we go even before that? What could we do to have sort of faster rollbacks? Well, we could have fewer rollbacks. Maybe we don't sort of have as many outages. And then it might be that maybe we could test it before we actually put it into production and need the rollback. So we get into the testing in a pre-prod environment. So maybe it's the amount of test coverage that we have in the staging environment, as someone said. Failed builds in the CI pipeline, what a great example, right? Automated test coverage. Maybe we need to make sure that the reason we didn't see it even in staging that it failed, if we didn't have anything to test it in staging, maybe we could sort of start doing better code reviews based on what we see as common errors. So we know which areas of our code are problematic and so forth. Maybe we can start doing smaller changes. And you will sort of see that does doing better code reviews guarantee no production downtime? And Chris Gomez says, no, it doesn't. Now, that's the trade-off you're making with outcomes and key results, the lagging indicators. It's an absolute directly correlated. If you don't have any production rollbacks, then customer quality is better. To leading indicators, which are speculative. What we're saying is, if we do smaller changes, we tend to find we have fewer production outages. If we do better code reviews, real ones, not just sort of, it's not how fast can you hit the accept button on your code review, it's actually adding comments and discussing them, then where do you go, right? I mean, it's so then they're indicators of a more likely better quality, but they're not perfectly correlated. So you can't just measure one or the other there. You got to have something to tell you that you did succeed, but they won't tell you what actions or help you choose what actions you take at the code level. They won't tell you the tactics that you're going to do to try and improve quality. So they're a different audience and a different market. You don't go presenting your change diff size at an executive briefing, but you do show it to the teams and you do keep it visible and you do those sorts of things. All right. Any questions so far? All right. So here's one that we're in, right? I mean, we got this vision about having a software as a service that has a new way of doing strategy continuously and delivering on that strategy, not just sort of making it pretty PowerPoint presentations. But like we've got some challenges between here and there, right? And one of them is how do we make sure that we actually have a stable product and that it's going to be able to scale with the sheer enormous number of people who are going to want to use this service, right? I mean, you all are going to sign up. I know you are, right? And but it's a concern. It certainly is between us and being successful as a software as a service provider. We are focused on scalability and reliability as we onboard people, because it's all okay at the moment for me to break it. I apologize to Chris and we move on. But once people start paying for it, all bets are off. So part of what we built into our own tooling is the ability to find these key performance indicators. And I'll do it live and we'll see what happens. Where are we here? Okay, here we are. All righty. So part of what we have in our tool, Casey. Let me just exit out this one for a second. Is the ability to set up these strategies. Don't worry about this for the moment. You can sort of check this out sort of later. But one of them, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make the objective and the key results visible in one place, in one way, and then sort of move into the tactics. But remember the OKR, the outcome, unplanned downtime, is a lagging indicator. How do I find the leading indicators of that? Well, we built in, and I find in the real world, there's about a 3-to-1 ratio. You don't want too many leading indicators, but I find about 3 leading indicators per outcome in measure is about the right ratio. Any sort of less than that, then I think you're probably going to miss some signals. Any more than that, then I think you're going to start getting duplication. Multiple measures are going to move at the same time, and you're not going to know exactly what you sort of did. Now, what we sort of tried to do here is, and knowing that this is a hard process to teach, how can we give sort of advice on that sort of stuff, is we've sort of built in the ability to ask the tool to give you some examples. Now, it's not going to get them all, but you'll sort of see that it gives you instant response time. Again, bit lagging, but that's sort of pretty good. Update frequency. I like that one. So let me throw that one across. Number of critical bugs reported, mean time to recovery, too lagging. Customer downtime reports, server utilization rate. Maybe we got to keep an eye on that. I don't know. Let's keep going. Trend analysis frequency. That's when we see reoccurring issues, that we don't have reoccurring issues and we reduce the downtime. That's not too bad. Team training hours. I think I like we're going to go for sort of automated test coverage. and maybe server utilization to see, yeah, either way. I'll leave that for the moment there. Right, now let me explain these. You don't want these overlapping. So system update frequency does not really overlap with the server utilization. They're going to sense two different vectors of unplanned downtime. One of them is that our releases are too big, and that's why I'm using system update frequency. I'm sort of saying let's keep sort of throwing things out there, and then what I find is I would pick a third one that's got nothing to do with update frequency, nothing to do with the rate. It's probably the testing. And what we want that sort of above 85%. Start low. It's okay with leading indicators to be less aggressive with what your target is, because you're trying to gather momentum. I bet if we get to 85%, we're probably going to get to 95% very quickly. So what we're trying to do is motivate people to move towards what they want to do. And what I find is, depending on how far out your key result is going to be analyzed and looked at to choose about whether this is still worth investing in, you want these at about a third of the way and 2/3 of the way along the continuum between those two. And you go from there. But what we're sort of hoping is that people have a very hard time coming up with these. So we're sort of hoping to give you the ability to have those, and then have the tactics. And then what we sort of also do there, is ignore that. Is we actually go and give you sort of hypothesis and experiments that go and test those by putting the key results in. What you will find is the experiments we suggest that you run actually look at proving or disproving whether those key results are the right things to do. It's talking about enhanced monitoring and response time will decrease unplanned downtime. It's a speculation. Getting some real-time alerts, getting instant response, and then improving code quality. It sort of says that's an assumption. Our hypothesis is that if we write better code, we'll have fewer bugs downstream. So what are we going to do? Code reviews, pair programming, automated testing, and bug bounty programs to try and ascertain what those things are. So in this case, what we're trying to do to help people get to better key results is to get them the key results that help them drive the experiments to prove that those key results are more correlated. And this is where we're not saying do this, we're just giving you options. We're giving you proposed experiments to run, and then you can sort of choose to add them yourself, and maybe even then choose to do them. All right. That's sort of how we're trying to use AI to help you uncover the indicators. And it took a while to get to this level of response, but it builds in a lot of those questions that you saw earlier. We're trying to uncover those questions to bring that across. And you can sort of refine them. So if you like the DORA metrics, you could sort of say, yeah, I want more DORA metrics. Please put some DORA metrics in. Or you could sort of say, I want more development metrics like change size and number of reviews. And you can keep refining it. And I think the best way to use these AI language models is to spark your imagination. And what I find when I do the training is getting someone to shout out the first metric is hard. But once someone shouts out the first metric, the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th metric come pretty damn easy, because people can critique, they can complain far more than they can create and invent new ideas. So what I'm trying to do with just giving you these prompts is to spark the group consensus as to that is a good indicator, and I can explain why inside your companies. All right. Yep. And my favorites, by the way, are code merge frequency and change size, the diff size. And I think both of those are pretty good leading indicators that you're likely to have um, less production defects, even if you did nothing else. Again, it's just sort of smaller whip, smaller changes, easier to understand the impact and the blast radius of the code you're changing. They're very good sort of measures. And then deployment frequency proves that not only can you do it on your machine, you can do it in production. And I think that's the gold standard. All right, enough from me. Now it's about you. Examples. Someone want to give us an objective or an outcome metric that you want to work through the problem. If not, I'll choose one. Any advice countering the setup cost for new leading indicators as new data is not free? Yeah, good point. So I'll answer the question while you think of some ideas. All right, thanks. And we'll do that one from Damien. Increase production revenue by 20% in a few years. So yeah, leading indicators have a cost. And Ben Parry mentioned that in that call there. They are. Measuring is not free. So first of all, make sure that you're putting a leading indicator on an objective which everyone agrees is a key objective that you want to achieve and you need to achieve as a company. So don't go putting leading indicators on everything. Go make sure that the objective you're building a leading indicator for has a reason for being there. Now, the most valuable leading indicators are the ones which help you choose, or the ones which there is a huge selection of tactics in which to create an outcome. Because if you have got leading indicators, but they're not going to be used for anything, they're just going to be visually tracked as eye candy, that is complete waste. So I would start by not trying to add leading indicators to every objective measure and key result measure. I would start by picking maybe the top three. And then by limiting it just to three, and I'm pretty good. I can come up with 20 sort of leading indicators in about 5 minutes if I'm sober. But the point is that what you're trying to do is you pick 3 leading indicators which are most likely to help you choose from all of the actions that you could take, which one you're going to choose. So you got to limit your key indicators in progress, I guess, is the right way of putting it. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to choose the ones which are going to help us make the most decisions for the objectives which are the most important to achieve. Because if you're an executive, all you get at the moment is when you do your annual review of the OKRs, and it's sadly too prevalent in our industry, all you're getting told is, we didn't reach that one, we didn't reach that one, we didn't reach that one. Why didn't we reach it? Oh, well, you never approved the hiring recs for the people needed to do that work. Why didn't you tell me? Well, I'm telling you now. I'm sure we failed and we got a year behind us, but what really infuriates management, it's good for me because I get engagements from it, is the frustration that they were the last to know that an objective was not going to be met. Everyone kept quiet about it. And I guess if you're going to invest in key results, invest in the key results, which are the early warning signs that is going to happen while you can do something about it. So Ben, thanks for that. Yeah, the cost leading indicators are expensive. Getting new data is not free. So what you will find is out of the 20 that you get, pick the ones which are the cheapest to capture, as long as you think that there's a correlation to the outcome. So some are more expensive than others. So don't go for the perfect metric, just go for a metric you think is going to be your early warning sign of disaster. All right. Adoption to global rollout. We got increased product revenue by 20% in 6 months. Okay, let's do that one. All right. So I freak people out a bit. I actually do a lot of facilitation in PowerPoint like this, where that way when I save the slides, everyone can get a copy of the slides as to what they agreed during the meeting. All right, so increasing product revenue by 20%. That's a classic sort of business ambition. It's not a vision. It's not an OKR. It's just what we want. It's what we need to keep our jobs. Okay, chat window. What's a leading indicator that product revenue is going to increase by 20%? User usage and signups. Okay, let's do that. We've got signups. Signups are good. Well, let's put it in order though. But so usage happens after sign up. Okay, so what do we need to do to get more signups occurring? What is something that would tell us that signups are more likely to occur? Better customer awareness with marketing. Okay, so this is the classic case. So let's say, what's an indicator that marketing has been successful? Visits to the site. All right. Now we get sort of into a bit of a race condition. All right. The response rate to marketing campaigns. That's right. Maybe we can sort of someone sort of did another one down there as too, that they had another lagging indicator down here called limiting churn. So sometimes there isn't one thread that you're tracking through. Sometimes there's a couple of threads at the same time. Okay, so traffic visits, response rate. All right. Any other changes on response rate? Okay, so someone's going down the thread there on the limiting churn. What's something that we're going to do to make sure that could limit churn? Maybe we could do a survey and find out if they're about to churn. Customer satisfaction, right? Okay, right. So we sort of get there. So we think that traffic and visits is a more leading indicator that there's a chance that there's product revenue going to increase over time. I would probably also think that there's probably a referrals concept there as well. Is that can we take the customers we have and make them be the marketing channel that we need to sort of do? Increase vendor lock-in, yeah, active in-app engagement metrics. That's right. Maybe there's some. We'll get more. The thing about referrals is it proves customer satisfaction, which will limit churn, and it improves that it sort of says that usage is more likely to increase. So what we're now seeing from Ben Parry's question is that there's now one leading indicator about maybe traffic and visits and response rate, traffic and visits is pretty easy to measure and pretty cheap and inexpensive. Referrals, maybe we need to add some Google Analytics to capture the referral click events, right? But referrals is particularly good as a leading indicator here because it's an indicator for both paths to increasing product revenue. So I would probably, if I could only invest in one of these leading indicators, it would probably be the referrals. Traffic visits. Now, this is a classic one, right? I used to be someone important for a travel website that was represented by a gnome. And every sort of 6 a.m., every couple of mornings, I would get woken up with oh my God, conversion's down. We don't have any sort of our conversion. The number of sales, the number of bookings is declining. There must be something wrong with technology. And, the way we used to measure that is there's a number of visitors to the website, and then the number of people who purchase something, and that's called that's the That's the close rate that we wanted, and we knew that roughly what that is, and it's around about 3 to 4% on most websites. That's the rate of you get a 3 to 4% of people who visit your site actually buy something or book. That's a good sort of target. But it's got a number of people that visit the site divided by the number of people who check out, and it shouldn't change based on traffic. But what might it change on? Why could less people check out and buy something based on, even if you had increased traffic? Deals. Yeah, response times is one. Deals, increased flight prices. That's right. Things that have absolutely nothing to do with the platform being broken. And I used to actually have to, so I sort of set up leading indicators around the factors. And mostly when we looked into it, compared to this time last year, why are sales so low? You ran a TV campaign last year. The Amazing Race was on, and we were getting lots of traffic to the site, and they were visiting the places that we said. I mean, it was just, so you want to put leading indicators in that help you diagnose the true cause, false and positive, for what you're getting. And lower quality referral channels. That's right. So maybe there's some extra analysis we want to do on referrals. But I think that by measuring traffic and visits and referrals, we actually will have more confidence and a better idea that we are actually heading towards increased product revenue. That make sense? Any comments on this? You got to do this with your teams. You can't just do it yourself in a room with a bottle of scotch. I've tried it; it doesn't work too well. But because what you're teaching the organization is that thread of connection between these things happening, and so the direct and the indirect that is actionable. Jocko going to become my writer. Does that make sense? All right, good. Enough for this one. Let's move on to another one. I've got to go back up and see. Some of you had some other ideas. Adoption of a global rollout of a video consulting app. All right. Ready to move on? Anyone not? So again, if you want us to work through yours, then put it in the chat window, a suggestion for a quick one. Okay. Adoption of global rollout of video consultation app. Now, leading or lagging indicator? All right, Chris says it's lagging. I tend to agree. How do we know it's lagging? Not done. That's right. It's a measure of adoption, which means something has had to occur at the customer end before this has actually happened. Okay, you can only measure when people pay and using it. That's good. How can you tell whether you're on the track to that occurring? Let's work that problem. Okay, what has to happen or what has to stop happening for this to have a higher chance of coming true? Okay, that's a good point. Exist and work. That's a good point. What increases the odds of the app increasing and working? All right. MVP-ness. I spell it like that because otherwise the recording will be blocked. How is it ready to go? Will they buy it? So maybe there's some to actually sort of to do it. Yeah, where are you going to release it and who is it going to release it to? Are you going to is it who's the target? Is the target just the early adopters? Or is it someone else? Where? Yeah, early adopters. Yeah. Geography, like who you probably don't want to start taking on multi-byte languages straight away. It might slow you down in developing. So, right. so we've got a couple of things to do. And even though these aren't exact measures that you have at the moment, sometimes a leading indicator is that a decision hasn't been made. It's a blocking decision. It's something that you can't get right. So often, like I know in our sort of product, which isn't sort of trying to do a global rollout video consultation app, but you get blocked on things which are outside of IT and even the product's control. Do we have the legal stuff in place in order to be able to sell it? Do you have the privacy agreements? Are you able to accept credit cards and cash, right? Contracts, all right? So sometimes it is okay for some leading indicators to be binaries, go or no goes, because remember, the goal of these leading indicators is to say that we have increasing confidence that the outcome will be met when we said. And sometimes a binary, it can't happen, is exactly the type of leading indicator you need to move forward. So don't think of leading indicators as just being numerical values and trends. They should become that after you've got past all of the binary barriers that mean that you will never get it. You'll never get it sort of right. So I tend to start with these, and we will make no progress until these things are done. And then once they're done, I go back hunting for the next best leading indicator that gives me even more confidence that we're more likely to reach the outcome. All right, how are we going? Okay, so if we did choose a target of early adopters, now let's rewrite this target for the early adopters as to what we can measure as a leading indicator. Oh, no, I don't want that. That's a Freudian slip. I don't want to beat my users. I want beta users, and maybe that there's a way of yeah, that's right. Beat the users until they give us their credit card. I've tried it. It's slow. It's a slow progress, beating people one at a time. I want to do it in bulk. I want to make them use safe. Oh my God, I'm recording now. So anyway, beta users might be a good measure to show that we're at least getting traction, that our MVP is actually working for that target audience, knowing that that sort of is increasing the odds that what I have is more likely to exist and work, which means that people will start adopting it. So part of beta users is really sort of our assumption that there's that we actually have product market fit. In my case. So, right. So what increases the odds of getting beta users? What's a measure that our beta users are even our attempt and measure to try and sort of see if we could get beta users onto our product was to start running calls like this to tell people about it, right? So you can sort of see what leading indicators help you do is the action. They help you choose what to do. They help you choose the tactics that you're going to do to get there. So leading indicators just aren't a measure. They're a motivating force that focuses people on a direction and a strategy about how to get a strategy to come true. And I think that that's sort of not what, yeah. And Ben says expressions of interest in trialing. That's right. People who actually sign up even for a test, people who respond to emails, that sort of stuff that's happening. That is a very good way of thinking about it. All right. Okay. So questions on the process, you see what it is, right? And what we do is we start off on a very business-oriented lagging indicator, and then we start sort of working backwards, asking questions, prompting the group to choose what they want to do. When they get to we don't know enough about it, it's about, well, now it's time to give them some hypotheses and experiments to try and solve so that they do understand what are the right measures to do. So yeah, there we go. All right. So before people sort of go, I'm going to take questions for at least another 10 minutes or so, so I'm not bowling on you. But if you have questions, and just email them to us. You know, if you want to get some help on how we built in the techniques, that technique you just showed is sort of built into that product about understanding and working backwards. Yeah, and give Casey a go. There is a survey, top right-hand corner there. The slides are already up on the website. So the link, if you go to the link event, you'll sort of see these slides. You can download them. There's not a lot of content in there because we did most of it now. I'll update them with what we just did. Yeah, but if you could do the survey, just the QR code, or there's a link in the slides, and I would appreciate that. All right. Any questions so far? So on the Casey side of it, what we tended to do on the measures there is sort of also show those measures, but we're very particular about. Let's go to what's our favorite Uber one there. It's always a phone call. Is you're going to end up with a lot more sort of ideas than you actually have, and how you're going to choose between them. Often the technique we use, and the same thing happens with the leading indicators there, is we want to find out sort of which one, including the experiments we're going to run, actually have the best chance of improving what you're going to do. So yeah, we do the same sort of things down here. Is that what we do is we give you a supporting argument and a counter argument for everything that we're going to help you prioritize, and that includes those OKRs. So we're trying to help you roll in the way that the OKRs are leading indicators. We're rolling them into helping you select what work to choose, what actions and tactics to go after. So that's sort of what we're trying to do there. And what we're finding is the counter argument and supporting argument process is a way of making the groups of people actually sort of start understanding why they're choosing something more than others, and so forth. And so you've got to constantly be on the ball. There's no perfect leading indicator. There's just some which are going to give you more of a hint, or they drive to more actions than others. Anyway, we check the chat window. Questions? All right, don't see any questions coming in. It couldn't have been that sort of good. All right, Damien, everyone, thank you. All right. Well, with that, stop while the going's good. I'll stop the recording and you can really say what you think.